Hi, I'm James Hamilton from Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal, and this is the Flip Up Router Edge Guide. Router edge guides are used for cutting rabbets, dados, grooves, all sorts of simple joinery with a handheld router. Here in our main workshop, we have some commercially made edge guides. In fact, we'll soon have a video showing how you can use one of those commercially made ones to make a full set of cabinets without a table saw. But in our other workshop, which is filled with homemade tools, we have 3 homemade edge guides. You saw one of them in a recent video about making a tapered sliding dovetail back in the February issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. If you didn't get the issue, you can check it out for free in the archives at stumpynubs.com. But I got a lot of comments about that jig, so I thought I'd show you how to make it. In fact, over the next week or so, we'll show you how to make and use all 3 of our favorite homemade edge guides. They all have different features, each with their own sets of pros and cons. So if you want to go the homemade route, watch all 3 videos, then decide for yourself which one you'd like to make. And we'll show you how to make all 3 of them. As the videos become available, I'll link to them in the notes below this video. So click on Show More down below. Now let's get started with edge guide number 1. This is a simple one to make, but it gets the job done quickly and accurately. You just mark the center location of your dado, rabbet, or groove, align the edge guide with the marks, clamp it down, then you flip the hinged portion up, which eliminates the need to compensate for the offset created by your router base. The only thing simpler than using it is building it. I made mine from 2 pieces of 3/4 inch MDF. One was about 8 inches wide, but the width of the other one depends on your router. To find that width, mark the side of your router base that you will most commonly run against your edge guide. More on that later. Then measure from that point on the base to the center of your router's spindle. You can find the center point by just inserting a straight bit, because a lot of straight bits have their centers marked by the machining process. Or you can use a V-groove bit, which has a point you can measure to. The distance between the edge of your base plate where you had it marked and the center of your spindle is the width that you make the narrow piece of your jig. The length of those 2 pieces depends on the length of your piano-style hinge. Mine was 30 inches long. You can find these long piano-style hinges in most hardware stores and home centers. As you attach yours, make sure your 2 panels are tight against each other and bore pilot holes for your screws. Be careful to get them centered in each hole in the hinge. You don't want an off-center screw head shifting the position of the hinge when you tighten it down. It's also easier to keep the hinges aligned if you put a screw on each end first and then another in the center and then fill in the rest. It's all there is to making the jig. Now here are a few tips for using it. I always mark the center point of my dado or groove with this jig. The reason why this jig references from the center of the joint is because the distance from the edge of your router base to the center of the bit never changes, no matter how wide the bit is, theoretically. But in actual practice, your router base plate may not be perfectly centered. So the distance from one edge of the base to the bit may be different on one side than it is on the other side of the router base. That's why I marked one side of the base. And then I always run that same side of the base against the jig, just in case that base plate isn't perfectly centered. Of course, whenever you use an edge guide, you want to move the router from left to right, because the spinning bit will then pull the router towards the guide instead of pushing it away. So it'll be easier to control that way. And it should go without saying that you should clamp the guide down. That's it for guide number 1. In a few days, we'll post guide number 2, and then guide number 3 will come sometime after that. Look for links in the notes below this video when they're available. Or head over to stumpynubs.com for a free subscription to Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal, because all 3 will eventually appear in there, and subscriptions are always free. Happy edge guiding.